okay, let's do profit sharing. We're selling your products right now in June, and we'll take a portion of that and share it with the farmers. Gets to about week 3 of June. I'm like, okay, Loa, we have sold 5. We have sold 5 of this sampler.
How much were we selling the sampler for? $45?
$40 or something. It was just like, we have 5.
We've made like $250, and
yeah, it's like,
cost is a portion of that.
On our own, right? And it's like this didn't work. But Loa's already told the farmers like, hey, we're gonna do like a share. And I'm just like, oh, shoot, what are we gonna do now? I was like, all right, screw it. You know what? Like, let's just kind of bite the bullet from our own profit, not from what we sold in Hefeng, from the money we've made elsewhere. Let's take some of that money and basically try to guarantee at least 500 RMB per household, which is not great.
Which is like 10 households, right?
Initially, we were thinking 500 for 10 households. Later on, we realized only 8 actually produce tea, so 500 for 8 households.
It's like 4,000, yeah.
RMB in the end, which, not breaking the bank too much, but also for them, it is, as we learned, the first dividend they've ever had, despite being in a cooperative ostensibly for the last decade.
Wow. All right. Hello. This is Derek from Oner Tea. Welcome back to another episode of Tea Soup, a podcast all about tea culture, life in modern China, and Chinese tea. I'm your host, Derek Poskin. I've been living here since 2016. I've been drinking, buying, and selling Chinese tea for the past decade. So pop on that kettle, heat up your teaware, and let's get this session started. In this very special episode, it's a 2-parter actually, so if you missed that first one, go back and listen to it, because this is the second part of that conversation I'm having with my partner, Alex. Alex Witherspoon is out in Hubei. He's doing his master's in economics and really working with a lot of cooperatives, tea cooperatives, agricultural cooperatives in the area, and seeing what we can do and seeing the structure of how to revitalize rural areas and just generally improve the overall economic validity of these regions and these peoples and these farmers. And so this is the second part episode of what he's been doing out in Hubei and Hefeng. And if you follow us anywhere, you know we have a plot of land in Hubei, we have some tea trees, we have this old wooden house, and we're creating these woofing opportunities. We've already had, I think, 3 or 4 volunteers from abroad come over, live there, work the garden, and kind of experience life on the mountain in the rural Chinese areas and dealing with organic farming in this socioeconomic area, because it is intrinsically tied with economy. Because a lot of the farmers, as we'll see later in this episode, they're sick of organic farming because they're not getting the payouts they expected, and they need the payouts because they are farmers living on the land trying to make a living. And so if they can't do that feasibly with organic means, they're going to go inorganic. They're going to go back to being inorganic, and we'll see this kind of fallout later. And so this is a really interesting episode because it kind of takes the rose-tinted glasses off of a lot of the buzzwords that get thrown around when you talk about small farm tea production, when you talk about organic farming, when you talk about cooperatives, when you talk about small villages with elderly people picking and making the tea. This is the world we're going to take you into in this episode, and get ready for it, because these are real people living on a mountain trying to sell tea in an organic way, in a cooperative way, and it's failing them. And so it's kind of tragic for us, and that's really what prompted this episode, and we really just want to show everyone what's going on in that mountain, because it's fascinating to us, and it's the real struggle we experience. So again, thank you guys for all of your support, all of your interest, and yeah, be prepared for this episode because it's really, really fascinating to us. So let's get out there. Let's take this out to Hefeng. So we talked about Ensure, we talked about Hubei. Now let's get out into Hefeng. Hefeng, if I believe, as you've mentioned, was the poorest county in Hubei for a while. Is that correct?
One of the poorest counties in like central China, period.
Central China, period. Hefeng County.
They only officially swapping like a year or two before the deadline. You remember in China there was this big deadline. Like, all right,
this is the Poverty Eradication Act, right?
Correct. So they're trying to, before the 100th anniversary of the Communist Party in China, get everyone out of this $2 a day poverty standard range. And
Mm.
Hefeng's one of the last places, at least in central China, that got there. Like only a year or
Wow.
two at the very end, they finally
Wow.
reached that standard.
So let's
We
let's
are.
let's get out there and see what collective farming, cooperative farming, agricultural validity, economic validity looks like in one
Sure.
of the poorest counties in central China.
So to give context with Hefeng was doing fantastic in the 70s and 80s.
Hmm.
They were producing more tea than, forget Tuanbao, forget Bajau. They were the leader in the entire Ensha area. They were the
Really?
leader in almost all of Western Hubei, period. Hefeng was doing great. They had the Zoma State Farm. They had a
Okay, yeah.
county farm operated in downtown, what is now the county seat in Rongmei Township. And they were already exporting black tea abroad. We
Wow.
later on got to get like this manuscript of the guy who was sent out there in the 50s to kind of put this one of the farms together out in Zoma, and like he was pissed. You imagine like it was hard enough to go to school in those days. So you go to school, you finally graduate from this like great academy in Anhui. They say, great, you're going to Hefeng. In those days, there was no railroad, there was no
That's
airport.
that's like exile, yeah.
Like you're exiled to the hinterland basically. He goes
Right.
out there, he's exiled. It takes days to get from Anhui to Hefeng, two neighboring provinces. But like finally gets out there, and anyways, it does a fantastic job. Zoma is a big success, and they're exporting black tea and very standard Maojian, like green Hongqing points, so like very, I guess, like standard green tea, boring green tea uh, in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s. They were not really doing Yulu in Hefeng County. They were
Okay.
doing lots of black tea for export. Great. All right. Those get shut down in the 2000s ish. Zoma today is a wonderful tourist destination. I forget what company bought it out, but
Are they
Hefeng.
still are they still making teas, Oma?
So still making tea? Yeah, it's like that's like if you want to see a beautiful tea field, that's the place to go. Almost in all of Ensha. You went to Wuja Tai.
Which
We
is
both went to,
beautiful. Yeah.
which is beautiful. We both saw Tuanbao, also beautiful. Zoma is probably number three, number two.
Okay.
So I have not been there, I will admit. But still, the government sees the tea industry is in big trouble in the 2000s, and they're trying to, just like Ensha, get some big rich guy to come out here and basically do what happened in Ensha with Rimbang Company. Kind of doesn't work at first. Shilong is the first big name in Shilong Village over in Woyang Township, which is next door to this township. And he didn't have lots of money, but he had powerful friends. He had friends in the state government, the autonomous state government. He had professors, and they came out there and tried to figure out how do we make Hefeng tea viable. And what they settled on, because honestly, production style, pretty boring. Environment, fine. What they settled on is that we're going to do organic, and we're going to go organic so hard that nowhere else in Hubei can compete.
Okay.
So they set their sights on going organic, and they get all this media buzz for trying to go organic, and the government supports it. They say, you know what? We're going to try to make all of Hefeng organic. This is going great. He's making money at this point. Again, he was not some big capitalist. He was a pretty normal guy. Went back to his home village. And because he was able to basically mobilize the state apparatus and mobilize all these intellectuals and media people, he was able to make it work. And the government, Hefeng, was very happy about that, very excited. And they say, we're doing cooperatives. He makes a cooperative, ultimately. That was the form he chose. And they were able to pay their farmers like double what everyone else in Hefeng was making because it was organic. And they were already years ago, they were able to give like 10,000 like yuan, like 10,000 RMB of compensation, be it dividends or in price, to each farmer per moo. So if you have 10 moo, you're making like 100. You're doing really well. You're doing like Tuar kind of like really, really well. So Hefeng was super excited about this model, and they encourage all these village cadres. Here we are in Mayingtai, belongs to the Yenping village, and the village chief at the time was a guy named Luo Shinping. He was a truck driver for many years. He was a truck driver at Bafeng Mountain, not Wufeng Mountain in Ensha, but Bafeng Mountain here in Hefeng, where they had a fantastic collective enterprise in the 90s. And being a fantastic collective enterprise in the 90s, it kerploded. It had a fantastic death, more or
Mm.
less, in the late 90s, early 2000s. And he was out of work. He was working at the forestry department for a while. Whoops, sorry, we're out of money. They fired him or let him off. He's back there now, ironically, at the end of his life. He's back at the forestry department. But in the meantime, he has come back home and he's trying to figure out what should he do. He doesn't want to go back to trucking. He's made honestly a lot of money. He has a bunch of savings. He was already a party member, and he tries in his wife's home village in Yenping to start a tea cooperative. They had already been doing tea here for 50, 60 years. And what is today his factory at the time was a like fish pond, and he transforms that into a factory with government money. He starts a
What
cooperative
what year
called
is this?
this 2010. 2010
Mm.
starts the cooperative. I think 2011 he gets properly registered. So he has the cooperative there in Yenping Village, and that cooperative covers within Yenping Village. There are several teams. I mentioned earlier in the commune there's like three tiers, right? There was the commune, production brigade, production team. Production teams are now just called teams. So team three, where I am right now, that's mining Tai.
Mm.
Team one, I think, is called Lianghe, which is like the two river meeting, two river mouth. So in all, I think in section two, section three, and section four of this village, he brings all of the cooperative, all the former tea land together into this cooperative, on
Okay.
paper at least, and registers it for this organic transition program. It says, hey, all this land, we're going to work together. They're all going to sell through my factory, he hopes. This is an
Mm.
aspirational claim at the time. They're all going to sell through me. It's all going to be organic. And the farmers were happy. They
Mm.
honestly liked him. He's a charismatic guy. He's really down to earth.
Yeah. I
And
like Lo a lot, yeah.
for good 5, 6 years, it's working. It's working pretty well. Like they are doing their best not to use
Converting to
inorganic
organic.
fertilizer.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're not everyone though. Be sure they were Popo. I learned today was the
Popo.
single worst offender through this entire period of pesticide application. She was like when officials would come to visit, he would
No.
call her and say, "I better not see you out there today."
Oh
And
my
they
God,
would go a whole
Popo.
different path to avoid her. Bless her
So
heart. A
so
sweet
so
woman.
let's
But
let's pause right here and introduce our Popo. So
Popo is the mother. Oh, I have so many more facts to tell you. So this
right.
house, uh, actually not Popo's son's house, as it turns out today. I learned
Oh no.
belonged to this family who died a couple of years before we showed up.
It
They're dead,
is
and I do not know the full circumstance.
is
But
why 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 is there a coffin in the house then?
I've always been told the coffin is for Popo.
So
In
they
the
covered the
night, he covered the entire coffin in cardboard. I don't know what the deal is. Anyways,
just to hide it, huh?
family's dead. He, through means I don't fully understand, has taken over stewardship of it. But that even sounds kind of unofficial from what the team leader told me today. Anyways, Popo is the mother of this great guy, Wang Jingguo. He was the guy who helped us build the bathroom out here.
Okay.
Cool dude. So yeah, cool guy. Helped us like get this place, whoever belonged to initially, set up as kind of our cabin out here to host volunteers.
So
Popo's the mother.
so to give everyone kind of a little deeper painted picture of what's going on here. So Hefeng County is maybe like an hour and a half by car from Ensher into the rural mountains of Hubei. And then from Hefeng, then you take another ride. How far? Like 30 minutes, 45 minutes?
30 minutes north.
30 minutes north of Hefeng, and you get to the small village of Shaping, right?
Shaping's the township.
The township. Yanping is the village. And they just created that road with dynamite in like the 50s. When did they do the road? 70s.
The team leader who told me all these facts today, his brother died building that road in the 70s.
Really?
And
yeah, because for those listening, this road is just like carved into sheer mountains over this huge ravine, and it's beautiful, it's stunning, it's terrifying, and I can just only imagine them making this road in the 70s with their their archaic technology, like just like I said, like dynamite, like just blasting a path through this mountain. And so it was quite a feat of engineering. Like,
Yeah, and that guy, if you come out here to this village, you can his grave is here. It's just this little stone plaque.
wow.
No name, no nothing to mark this teenager who died. But his brother, the team leader, kept on making roads and worked on roads for the rest of his life and became what do they call it in China? Like the hero of labor, like the model of
Lei
labor.
Feng,
Not
the living Lei
like
Feng,
like 劳动模仿 in Chinese. So it's just like
mm,
the kind of like the old
the
like Soviet
model.
model of like, oh look, here's the great worker. So he did a
Sure, I'm
really
I'm
good
just I'm just
job.
I'm just thinking of the images of Lei Feng with his
Sure,
head.
yeah,
Right?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Definitely, he's kind of a Lei Feng guy. Where it's like this morning, he's like, I hear you have a tourist coming tomorrow. Let me help you burn your plastic. And then I was like, oh, it's
Oh.
okay. And then he was like I got up this morning at like 8 o'clock. He was already over here, and he was like
Oh.
making a pile of styrofoam plastic. He was already burning some of it, by the way. Much my chagrin. And he's just like, they don't like you burying it anymore. You have to burn it. If you bury it, they'll get mad at you. And I was just like, thank you so much, team leader, for helping us
So
out with that.
so
But yeah,
continuing my travel through through this like dynamite blasted mountain road into the village of the township of Shopping, the village of Yangping, and then that's where the Loushuiyuan cooperative factory is. And
correct.
then you go up this mountain, the Ma Taiyan. What's the mountain called?
Man Ying Tai.
Manyan Tai.
Although
Mayan Tai.
there's contention there too.
It's so good.
They changed the name because it sounded unlucky. It was called Ma Ying Tai, which you might be remembering. It used to be called Ma Ying Tai. They
Mm.
renamed it. Now it's called Ma Ying Tai. Both of us being here. So FYI, they changed the name.
Okay. So you
But
go
yeah,
you go up that mountain and it is kind of like a plateau. And on that plateau you have how many families?
initially 11 when we first got here.
11 families. So 11 families. One of the people up there, her name is Popo. She's an old lady like 76 years old.
Yep. Her last name Tian Popo.
Tian Popo. Popo just means grandma, right? So we just all call her grandma. She's Tampopo, and her son, who's taken stewardship of this house, which apparently the people died.
Died of circumstances that we do not know about
They
in
haven't told us how
2000.
in 2000s. And so he rented us this house, and so we've rented it for 5 years, but kind of indefinitely at the moment, with like a few like maybe an acre of tea fields. And Popo is always just coming around helping us plant beans, plant sweet potatoes. She's very friendly. If we ever need food, she'll cook for us. But I have a video, Alex, of last time we went up there in the summertime, and we go up there and we're asking Popo about like the tarps, right? And Popo's like, yeah. And she's like, oh yeah, I've been spraying the path. And you're like, what? She's like, well, shwa, like I was spraying it. And you're like,
Don't do that.
exactly, because you're
Please don't do that.
and so
But
this
he
is
means
just
well.
like, this is the funny thing where it's like this old lady who's like been picking tea, growing all kinds of foods, living on this mountain her entire life, and she's, as Lowell says, the biggest like offender of the organic movement. Like, amazing.
Yeah, and totally sweet old lady, and helped us a lot. Like I guess like getting adjusted here. She's like that one morning. I was like, there was a giant snake, like trying to get into the bathroom. I was like, what do I do about that? She's like, oh, if you see it, take a bangza, just take a stick and just like whack it on the head.
And
Very delicious, very
and
house.
then very
I was like,
harsh.
okay.
And she left you a snake bopping
She
stick, right?
left me a stick. And she's like, this is the stick you're gonna use to kill those snakes. We're gonna eat them. All right, cool.
Amazing.
So,
Okay, so
what up, lady? Yeah.
so then getting back to connecting that into the story. So Luo, who was the village head, worked in the forestry department, started this cooperative, which on paper united all the land in the area in the township, right? Or a lot of it.
So at three teams of the village. I
Three
guess that
teams of the villages.
there are
Okay.
two teams of the village that were organized in a different cooperative.
Mhm.
But anyways, these three teams of the village come together. It's like 600 mu altogether, which is a
Wow,
lot.
it's quite a bit.
It's
And
100
so,
acres, kind of.
yeah, 100 acres interspersed between like steep mountains and stuff. So he created this cooperative in 2010, names it after not himself, but the river, right?
Correct. Yeah. So not
Lo Shui
Loa, but
Yuan.
Low
Lo
Shui.
Shui Yuan. Lo Shui Yuan. Lo is the river that runs through this gorge. And so it's named the Lo Shui Yuan Cooperative. And yeah, so Alex, do you want to kind of You introduced Lo a little bit, but how do we get to know these people? How do we find out about them?
Well, in bits and pieces and spurts, like, we got to know Loa, we got to know, damn it, we got to know Loa initially, Loa and his wife, Chunjie. We were looking for black tea. Sorry, Heichao. We were looking for dark tea. We were trying to
Dark
find
tea.
dark tea in Ansha, and Hefeng, according to this one website, was the only place where you could get it.
Hmm.
So we go to this shop on the map, and it's gone. It's not there. So we ended up like walking up and down the street in
Okay, see,
Hefeng.
I
This is
remember
me and Xiaoyan.
this.
This is me and Xiaoyan.
I
So.
remember the story. I remember these photos, and I remember thinking, what are they doing here? like I couldn't figure it out. I think there was a kill pig day involved, and go on.
Oh God, yeah, that's coming. But okay. So before all that happens, like we're walking up and down this street, Loushuiyuan Street in downtown Hafeng,
Clever.
which is, by the way, just like one of the most interesting and like abysmally poor, but also like beautiful cities you've ever seen. Like Hafeng County
Have
seat
fun.
is just
Yeah,
wonderful. It's like,
I loved it. The Shao Cow and the river, like
yeah, it's like these like 9-story, not built on any code buildings, kind of
mm,
falling apart. Um, all manner of like effluent flowing from these houses and streets into this beautiful river, which again is beautiful. It still smells nice, all things considered. People are fishing in it. There are these beautiful bridges. Xiaokao, yeah, great scene. Anyways, we're walking up and down here, and we're saying like, "Do you have dark tea? Ni hao, ni hei chao mai. Is there dark tea? What happened to the dark tea? Is the dark tea machine working again?" And like, finally found someone who had some dark tea, and that was them. And they're
okay.
like, dark tea kind of sucks. We tried to make it, doesn't work. Try it. And it was like awful. It was like
Mm, mm.
really astringent and like some of the worst, undrinkable. I gave it all a failing. But it was
Wow.
like just like she they gave us like this like the chen
Tempe?
this like
Oh. Oh, okay.
giant tube of it. I think it's the chenlong. And yeah, it was just awful. And but
But
they're like,
the vibe was
vibe was
they were
really
very
good.
honest. They were
They're
like,
very honest. They're like,
we've made
it's
this,
not.
it sucks.
It kind of sucks. Do you want this? And we were like, oh, maybe. And we bought it, being nice. We went down to their. They're like, oh, actually, we're pretty close. Do you want to just come with us? We'll take you up there so you can like check it out. The
Nice.
classic ORT experience. So we
Yep.
went up there, and yeah, it was sweet. The river was much cleaner up there
Mm.
for the city, and there was the tea fields. And day one, we're like, "What about like wild tea?" We'd heard about it in Ensha. And they're like, "Oh yeah, check it out." Took us to the wild tea. We could go there. We could take a picture of it
Yep.
and be told, "I hate to say it, guys, but it's not really wild. Like you should really call it wilded tea, not like
Nice.
proper wild tea." That was
Yeah.
like super like, "Oh, people are so nice." And
Yeah. Very
their
honest.
tea is average, but like, you know what? Like they're so cool. We want to work with them. Their Maojian is fine. Their Gurong Ihong actually pretty good. Like
Right.
their red tea is objectively
Yeah.
nice.
That
Um,
old path Ehong is great. Yeah.
so yeah, they had one excellent product, one okay product, one awful product, but honesty for all of them. So it was really nice to work with.
Honesty from all of them, and then also factor in the idea like this is historically one of the poorest counties in all of central China. Here's somebody that's charismatic that's trying to unite everybody mobilize them in this organic farming direction through cooperation, through a cooperative.
Yeah, and he could show us the map. Here's the certificate he has. Here's the
Yep.
map of like, take us down to the village. He was the village chief at the time. Take us down to the village office. Like, show us the proof of what he's doing.
That's
In a
and
really
so yeah, so
tangible way. So it was
that's
really,
again, this is an amazing find for us. This is exactly what we were looking for in all of our misadventures in Ensure so far.
yeah, that was great. And then um, later, it was in 2020. So this is 2019. We meet them. It was the next year, 2020, where we are thinking about, okay, we should get some property in the countryside. And we didn't really know what we were going to do with it. I always wanted to get into production,
Mhm.
but at the beginning, it was unclear what was going to happen with it. We got the property in March 2020, so we put ink to paper with the guy who has stewardship of the land now, Wang Jianguo,
We did that in
and
March of 2020.
I believe so
What
because
what were what were we
or
thinking? That was
2021,
COVID.
but
Okay.
20 no, it must have been 21. It must have been
Yeah.
21 because in 2020 of March I was with Faye. That's when we went to Baojing for the first time. Me and Xiaoyan was in 2020. So in 2021, it would have been the year
Okay.
after.
Yeah.
I was already in Jingzhou. That's right. I was
Oh,
already in Jingzhou doing my master's degree.
okay.
But um, I wanted to be involved, and I got this project from the university.
That's
And
right.
they're like, hey, we'll give you money if you can find a way to invest it in the countryside
Did
and work in foreigners. I was like,
did
wow,
did
I'm a
they?
foreigner.
Yeah.
I love countryside. Let's do this. In the end, they didn't give us terribly much money at all, but they gave us a project. And in China, man, if you have an official project with a number that can be searched and a stamp and like provincial support, you're no longer this weird foreigner who's sus. You're a weird sus foreigner who has a project, which is so much easier to do anything. It's like the village is like, oh, you have a project. Here's my sign. Here's my
Oh,
project number. You can search it. And then
open
things were kind
source.
of working out. So like
Okay.
we got the land rented, didn't do much with it that first year. We did lots of weeding. And then that October is when we had, do you remember Lao Mao, the Billy
Oh
Billy
yeah.
influencer? Lao Mao shows up, this Billy Billy comrade from Henan, and he's really interested in the project. I talked to him. I was his fan initially. He came down here, and we do this big sale in like September of 2021 to October of that same year, and we get all these Billy sales, and then all these crucially Taobao sales for Loushuiyuan. But they have a hard time operating the site, and many of those orders go unfulfilled
Really?
or get really delayed, and it's kind of a mess. But nonetheless, like there is still things are looking up. Like the sales are happening. They have a Taobao shop. They're selling at least their e-home, their like, old path e-home pretty well, and yeah, it's looking good. 2022 last year comes around, not so good. That's the first year we know now they start having trouble selling their tea,
We
and
we know now. That's
we know
ominous.
now. We know now.
Ominous.
We didn't know at the time. It was like um, but the cooperative up until that year, especially when this is happening, we're bringing this Lao Mao guy out there. We're bringing tourists. We had a Frenchman, a
Spanish guy.
Spaniard, and Hashem all come out. Uh, Through this government project, we got permission to travel, which was so hard under the restrictions to go
That
anywhere. So it
that
was
that
so
COVID
hard.
time, yeah.
We finally got all the permissions we needed thanks to that project to bring tourists out there. They saw it. Loushuiyuan is pretty hyped. They have all these tourists who come out here. They had their first big online sale thanks to Lao Mao. Things are looking good. Let's open a restaurant, they think. This
All
is the
right.
time we need to open a restaurant.
All right.
And they also opened this, Hefeng Rural Entrepreneur Association, and they're putting all this money out to like, uh, I guess, help out in this like charity project, not for the actual farmers in the cooperative, but for this like they're trying to build this like tourist site basically near the village, and they put down some money for that.
Oh, I
Put down some
remember
money
that. Yeah.
for this entrepreneur association, open a restaurant. Um, Again, with the money the cooperative has generated through years of good operation, successful business. Um, okay, they are in trouble. We don't really know that, but we know that the villagers are still very happy about working with us and I guess setting up this tea field. At this point, we've tarped it. We've been experimenting more with like how do you manage a field organically. We've done clover, we've done hongdo, we've done soybeans, we've done tarps, and tarps is kind of where we're at now. So a mixture of like tarps and clover is how we keep that field in great shape despite not using any chemical fertilizer or pesticide. And to me, I was like, wow, check this out, guys. I'm getting great yield still, and I am not doing anything. The buds are still growing. Buds are
Right.
still growing in spring, and they're still growing now in summer after I've cut it back, despite, again, applying no chemical fertilizer, no pesticide. I've won, I think,
Right.
coming into this year. Now we have more volunteers. We set up WOOF back in like WWOOF.
Yeah, that's the Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms.
We set up WOOF in April of this year, and then in May, through Reddit and then later in email, we start getting applicants to come out here and volunteer. I put out a random like blurb about it on Billy and forgot about it. And then as we're approaching June of this year, I got a text from this kid in Guangdong who's just like, "Can I come out there and be your first volunteer through WOOF?" And I was just like, "Oh, okay, Chinese kid. Like, at first I was like, do I want to bring a Chinese kid into this? Like, it'll be weird with like the languages and other foreigners. But I think, you know what? No worries, come out here. Let's have a good time. And he was really fun. His name was Li Yuan. Like, shout out to him. He doesn't speak English, but like, I'll tell him we talked about him here. Li Yuan's a really cool kid. He's in his third year of college. He has no idea what he wants to do. He kind of wants to tongping. He doesn't want to, go into any. He wants to lie flat. He doesn't want to go
Pumping
out
is
there
lay
and
flat.
be abused in the labor market. Yeah, great to have him out here. He helped us build the bathroom. Actually, unfortunately, got to do very little tea work, despite being excited about that. Instead, he got to help me lift 100-pound bags of concrete for 3 or 4 days. So, yeah, true homie.
Great kid, yeah.
Great kid. Great kid. I was like, I will pay you in food. He's like, great.
And opportunity, yeah.
I pay you. I wrote him one of those, what do they call it? Like the internship certificates they need in college. Okay. I wrote him one of those. So like he can say he was our intern for that week.
Nice. Well, that's good. So he was the first woofer.
He was the first woofer. And while he's out here and kind of in the lead up to that, we were trying in June to really promote Hefeng tea and then hopefully use whatever we get from that in revenue to spread to the farmers in a profit sharing dividend. We had tried to do this once before with the Laotian farmers.
I remember.
And it was not great.
Was it not great? I feel like it worked bad. Okay.
It worked out, but like they didn't understand what we were trying to do. I had to pay my Laotian classmate, if you remember, to like talk to them and try to explain.
So let me give a feedback. Clarify. So I went into northern Laos in 2019. I traveled from southern Laos, Vientiane, to Vang Vieng, to Luang Prabang, all the way up to Phong Sa-Li. And Phong Sa-Li asked where the tea is. And they're like, oh, it's, 50, 40 kilometers down this mountain ridge. And I was like, okay, rented a motorcycle from the guy, drove down the mountain ridge, bordered by jungle and like the mountain slopes, went through a few villages asking after tea, and finally found the village of Ban Komen. In the village of Ban Komen, I met this hungover dude who was like, it was sitting outside of a tea factory with a pile of tea. And he was like, yesterday was my birthday. I'm pretty hungover. And we're speaking Chinese because it's so close to the Chinese border that Chinese is the lingua franca, like the common language. So he doesn't speak any English, whatever. I buy a bunch of tea from him, and then I leave, and then COVID hits. And we can't get back to Laos, but we keep wanting to buy their tea and stuff like that. Their tea is being sold for really cheap for how good it is. And so we're trying to pay them more money than they're asking for. And they get really confused by that. And so they keep sending us more tea, where it's like, if we pay them twice as much for their tea, they send us twice as much tea. And so the way we tried to figure it out is like, okay, we'll profit share with them and be like, okay, we'll give you 50% of the profits back. And then I like message him. I'm like, hey, we're going to give you some money. He's like, but you want more tea? And like, no, we don't. And eventually this is when Alex finds his Laotian friend to translate for us, to kind of explain, okay, they're going to give you money and they don't want anything back from it. And so that was the first profit sharing, where eventually they figured it out and they were very, very grateful for it. They accepted the money. We haven't bought any tea from them since, just because the Laos tea hasn't really sold very well, but
R.I.P. But yeah, they seem like nice people, all things considered.
Yeah. So that was the first idea of the profit sharing, and now we're getting into the second phase, right?
Yeah, we were trying to like really, because we're paying for these woofers to be out here. Yeah, the cooperative here isn't spending. We're paying for all
this is ORT money, yeah.
ORT money is paying for all these volunteers. So when Lian came out here, I paid for him to take the bus out here. We paid for him to stay at the hotel. When he got stuck in Ichang going back, we paid for his hotel there for an extra night, and then said, good luck to you. And in return for him doing hard labor for a week, which it would have been 300 RMB to hire someone to stick concrete bags over their back and carry them per person per day, right? So it was cool to have him do that for us.
So he was the first.
He was the first, and as he was out here, I'm talking to Loushuiyuan, I'm talking to Luo. We're trying to figure out, okay, let's do profit sharing. We're selling your products right now in June, and we'll take a portion of that and share it with the farmers. Gets to about week 3 of June. I'm like, okay, Luo, we have sold 5. We have sold 5 of this sampler.
How much were we selling the sampler for? $45?
$40 or something. It was just like, We have five.
We've
This
we've
is
made
not
we've
gonna.
made we've made like $250,
Yeah,
and
it's like
cost is
we
a
have
portion of
costs on
that.
our own, right? And it's like this didn't work. But Lois already told the farmers like, hey, we're gonna do like a share. And I'm just like, oh shoot, like, what are we gonna do now? I was like, all right, screw it. You know what? Like, let's just kind of bite the bullet from our own profit,
Yeah.
not from what we sold in Hefeng, from
Yeah.
the money we've made elsewhere. Let's take some of that money and basically try to guarantee at least 500 RMB per household, which is not great,
Which
but
is like
like
10 households, right?
initially we were thinking 500 for 10 households. Later on, we realized only 8 actually produce tea, so 500 for 8 households. So
It's like four four four
4,000
thousand. Yeah.
RMB in the end, which not breaking the bank too much, but also for them, it is, as we learned, the first dividend they've ever had, despite being in a cooperative ostensibly for the last decade and change.
Wow.
So they
Wait.
never
So
got any dividends before that. And we'll get into that in a second,
yeah.
how that came about. Okay, so Li Yuan leaves. A couple of days after he leaves, we get another volunteer, a volunteer who wants to, in the future, he thought he wants to join our team, the Zhang Enshi. This kid was named after Enshi because his parents are so patriotic and left wing. He's kind of a radical kid. He was my student, my teacher at the university.
Okay.
And he comes out, he's super excited. And the morning before the meeting, we've got all the money in the envelopes. We've got little ORT tumblers to give them, and Lloyd's like getting some bags of his tea. We already kind of like sent our idea of what's going to happen to the team leader. Team leader says it's going to be great. Thumbs up. Wonderful. He isn't as literate as I thought he was. We will talk as we discovered because he did not read that. He didn't read it. He just gave us a thumbs up regardless. And we get up there. It's about 2 o'clock. We have Zhang Enshi, our potential future R&T member, Law, of course, the team leader, and people from all 8, actually 7 of these households. One guy is in the city. So 7 households, plus the team leader, plus Law, plus Zhang Enshi. Great, we're all there. And at the beginning, they're pumped. We're like, we got some money for you guys. We're going to split it up and we're going to do good cooperative things in the future. Wonderful. And then Law is like, all right, Alex, tell them like, the specific policies we're going to enforce. And I start listing out, in the next 2 years, you have to transition to the organic standards laid out by Hefeng County and the cooperative you're a member of. That was the first thing I said. That was the only thing I said before an uproar, a cacophony of like, "like it's not going to work. I don't know about that." And then to quiet them down, and this is Luo, the leader of the Loushuiyuan Cooperative, he stands up and he says, guys, I know I haven't paid you for a lot of your tea over the last 2 years. But that it's a hard time for all of us right now. We're all hurting, and like, hey, like you don't have much money now, but like this is 500 more RMB than you would have, and next year it might be 1,000 or 2,000. So like, you really should consider like cutting a deal here. That made nothing better. And yeah, we really got into it, like talking to them and figuring out what the problem is. Like, why is organic production something they're all opposed to? And as one lady said, well, like I have to use 6 bags of organic fertilizer for each bag of chemical fertilizer to get the same kind of yield. And for her, she's talking about spring yield. She wants lots of buds because green tea is what gets them the big money. They can get 30, 40, 50, 100 on certain days for green tea, for those small little buds. For the big tea, they can get 1.5 RMB per jin. So like, for the big stuff, for the dacha, for making hong tea, like they're making like a astronomically different amount of money for the small buds.
How much per gin for the big tea?
The cheapest right now, if it's picked, 1.5.
1.5 renminbi.
1.5 RMB, which is, I thought, insane. I was informed it's because they can pick more in the course. They can pick like 30 or 40 gin.
Is this loose tea?
Loose tea. So if they pick 30 gin of this in a day, right? 1.5 times 30, if they pick, that's 45 RMB, which is enough money for an old farmer that they'll still do it.
So that's they're getting 20 cents for every pound of loose tea they pick.
Oof. Yes. if it's the big tea.
Yeah,
So
the
they're
summer
obvious.
tea. Wow.
So obviously they want the best possible yield they can in the
For
spring
spring when they're getting.
when they're getting the good price on the small stuff. So chemical fertilizer helps a lot for them to do that. Honestly, pesticide was never really a problem. Pesticide was something that
More
both.
summer tea, yeah.
But I mean, yeah, because like they only care about yield in the spring, and they were spraying pesticide mostly not on the tea but on the road, on the path by their house.
Right.
They were spraying pesticide by their corn, and that was leaching into the tea fields. That was the problem with the pesticides. So with the inorganic, with the chemical fertilizer, they need it. And she's like, I am 70. I would have to carry 6 more bags, like 6 times the amount of, and again, really narrow terraced fields. They can't mechanize it.
Yeah.
They can't even get a wheelbarrow down some of those paths. They have to throw it over their backs, pop a hole in it, and then just kind of like fling the pig shit. This is pig shit, right? This is the
This is
organic
the pig shit
fertilizer.
organic fertilizer.
This is yeah. So they're having pig shit over their backs and taking out handfuls of pig shit and then throwing it over the tea fields. Yeah, it sucks.
It's
Uh,
times 6, right?
Times 6, so it's 6 times the labor, and it's much less pleasant to smell.
Well, it's
And
at least half the value of the tea, right? It's twice the value for organic tea.
yeah, well, and like again, the idea being they want what happened in Shillong Village to happen here.
Right.
They're expecting if they were doing organic, they're going to get paid more. What actually happened in the course of the last 10 years? Not that. They were not getting an extra price for following the organic policies.
So
They were still getting the same price they would as if they were selling inorganic tea. Because the cooperative, Loushuiyuan, was like, I'm tight for money. They did not offer a special price. But what they did offer was this free fertilizer. The government was giving them free fertilizer, and that was the sweetener.
organic fertilizer.
Organic fertilizer, pig poop, and other wonderful things mixed together. That was what was keeping them in this whole project because they were getting free fertilizer up until 2 years ago. So
2 years ago, what
then,
changed?
oh well, the government allegedly the government's broke, and maybe they are because of COVID and all the money they had to spend on the restrictions and all that. The government said no more organic fertilizer, buy it yourself. What incentive
So
do they have to buy it themselves? And they're not getting a better price. They were saving on cost functionally. They were saving on cost
functionally, like
by, but again, if you don't count labor, they were saving
right.
on input. The input of fertilizer cost they were saving. It was the only reason for them to do organic production. That was gone. And on top of that, now the cooperative isn't even paying you for the tea you've already given them, because again, allegedly the cooperative has all these like orders with the government and with big private companies, and the last few years they simply haven't paid for the tea they've got received.
So Lo says that he's been giving money to these government people and they're not giving, or he's been giving
them
tea, and they haven't been giving him money.
That's correct. So
And
you
then,
know,
he's
believe
been
it. I believe it.
yeah, I believe Lo too. But then the result of that is that the people in the cooperative are giving Lo tea, and he's not giving them money.
Yeah.
So he's just that middleman where he's giving their tea to the government, and nobody's giving money, nobody's buying it. They're just
exactly.
getting it.
Yeah, it's just the tea. The tea is they're good at making tea, but they're bad selling tea, right? To go back to Lewis's quote,
yeah.
like it's not happening because I mean, and I got up, I was pissed by the middle of this meeting. I was just like, you guys are making like, medium, very normal Maogen, and it's not selling because there's nothing unique about it. I could walk up and down this highway and find 10 other cooperatives making the exact same product. There's nothing unique about it, and so of course, if everyone in this area is hurting right now for money, they're all hurting, and they're all trying to compete for this small market.
Doing the exact same thing.
Doing the exact same thing. Of course, it's not viable. So like we need to work together now and reinvigorate organic production, and then we'll make a good brand and we'll sell this tea. And hurrah, hurrah! Was my stand-up speech moment.
Yep.
It's at this point that Wang Yulin, one of the farmers up there, starts saying, well, that's all fine and well. You guys can do your cooperative. I'm out of here. I'm not doing this. I have followed the organic rules strictly all these years. He is not a big offender. He has been,
Okay.
following through because he expected a better price. He hasn't gotten it. I
Yeah.
didn't get my money. And we're trying to explain, like, well, the soil takes time to regenerate. If we work together in 5, 10 years, like, we're gonna make this work. And he's just like, I'll be dead in 5 years, was his point. Like, I am in my 70s, I am going to die. You guys should rent the field now. You guys should just be the boss.
Hmm.
When this guy first came to the meeting, he was the first guy to show up. And he came to me and said, I hear you're doing tea. Let's open a factory. It was the first words out of his mouth to me. Like, he's done. He's sick of law. He wants us to come and do our own private factory here and rent the land from him. And he'll give it to us for the low price of 1,000 RMB per move.
For a year?
300 RMB is the price which Low quoted me at if we were to rent it. So he's like, so for the low price of 3 times the market value here. Like, even for
Okay.
like really valuable like irrigated land in Jingzhou for like fish farming, which is like the big money maker, it's like 800 RMB for a move. He's trying to
wow.
sell it to 1,000 for 1,000. Anyways, and then Zhang Enshi, who's the kid out here who initially wanted to join ORT, now he's totally freaked out. He came out here and was like, "Hey, comrade," he's a young party member, radical kid. They're trying to help you not be exploited. And then you is just, I will be dead in a few years. It doesn't matter about exploitation. I want money right now. 能搞到钱就好. If you can 搞到钱, if you can make money happen, we're all right. We're good. So like,
it's like I'm willing to be exploited if I get rich.
It doesn't matter. He's like, it doesn't matter. You can't talk about some exploitative relationship. It doesn't matter. We're getting money. We need money like now. So like, wow. And then the counter offer, or Yulian's like, I have an idea. Here's what we should do. You see down the hill, this other guy. By the way, everyone in this village, their last name is Wang for the most part, except for Tian Popo, because she married from outside. But almost everyone there is Wang family clan. And there is a Wang clan member down the hill, at the river, who has set up this kind of amusement park. He ran a very successful Xiaokao business. Now he got all this stuff on loan, like 300,000 RMB loan.
Oh, that's like 40,000 USD, huh?
To basically get all these really tacky like dragons and pagodas and a statue of Confucius, a bunch of like really weird mismatch of things to try to bring tourists out to the village, because he thinks tea is no longer viable. Okay. And Yulin agrees. He's like, you know what? Organic tea, this is not working. That looks like it's gonna work. You see all the TikToks he sends every day.
Yeah.
He gets lots of likes. So like Yulin is like, this is the way. We need to do tourism up here. I don't want to do tea anymore. I don't want to have to work the land. I'm old. I don't have to weed. I don't have to spread any more fertilizer. I'm done with this. I want someone to rent my land from me.
Yeah.
The end. That's my suggestion. Rent the land. Do something like the amusement park down the hill. That's the way forward. So that's where Yulin was at. And after he said that, everyone's like, yep, this is not going to work. And it looked like the meeting was failed. We had failed, and we would be doing nothing up here in Manyingtai. But thank God the team leader was there, and Xiaoyan was there. And Xiaoyan was furious, and she got up, and she was like, listen, like, you have no options. If a boss is going to come and like buy up all your land, great. Where's that boss? Who is going to come in and do what you're talking about? It's like, it's not going to happen. If we follow through on this, there's a chance it will work. If you do what you're doing right now, you will get the same outcome next year. And then Laura was, again, pushing like, hey, they're young people. I don't understand why they're so committed to this village, but like, look at this young person, outside resources, and they're bringing tourists out here. It's worth a shot. And we promise for the first 2 or 3 years, we're not going to force you to do anything organic. So Laura walks back hey, you have to do organic stuff. I said, over the next 2 years transition. Now for 2 years, you get an organic free card. Don't worry about it. You could do nothing.
Just
and that's okay.
Stay in the cooperative, please.
Stay in the cooperative, yeah. Accept this money, and we'll figure this out. And that's where we are now. We're trying to figure this out.
Okay, so let's recap the meeting. So it's like it gets up. Lo's like it's gonna be great, and so like
the expectations were super high going into it. It was a disaster, and then like
because yeah, we had the list. Here's all the people we want to give 500 yuan to, and it's like, yeah, like as you mentioned. Oh, you didn't mention. You told me the average income for the people on the
So
mountain.
if they were getting paid, they should be getting like 10,000 RMB altogether for a year. For one household average, they're making about, yeah, 10,000 RMB a year, which is
Oh my god, that's like
bad.
1,400 US dollars a year.
It is less than you would at any job in the city, but that's what they could expect through tea farming. Honestly, it's better than if they were doing grain or potatoes or any sort of like staple. So it's still a pretty reasonable cash crop income.
Right. And so
500 RMB
that's
is like
5%.
5%
Yeah.
of their yearly income. They get
Which
for
is,
nothing.
yeah,
As
just
again,
coming to this meeting
come to
and
the
listening.
meeting and
Yeah.
then commit that next year we're gonna have all they commit to is next year we'll have 4 meetings,
Mm,
4 times a year. You're gonna come back here, and
maybe get some money.
we'll continue this conversation. No money until
Yeah.
July. No money until July. But
Okay, so that's the
but
plan.
like
So, but again, like so they all come to this meeting thinking they're, and they did get
and
this
they did.
payout.
Yep.
And then you stand up and be like, okay, let's just reiterate why we're here. It's because we're all doing organic farming. And they're like, no,
No,
we're
we're not.
not.
No, we're not doing organic farming. Organic. We're done with organic farming.
And then Lowell stands up. Everyone, quiet down. I know I haven't been paying you.
Which is like for us, we didn't realize like because before our landlord mentioned, oh, Laura's been kind of behind on payments recently. I was just like,
Uh,
well, it's okay. It's early spring. Of course, he's behind on payments. He needs to sell the tea first. I thought.
and
No,
then
like 2 years. He's been behind for like 2 years on payments.
and then one of the household guys stands up and says, you know what, like I don't care about tea anymore. Let's just do what the Shao Kao guy did, the amusement park guy did, and get the big boss to come in and buy up all our land. And then our very first woofer, or second woofer, your friend, what was his name?
John and shit.
Giant Sure.
John and shit, named after the
Giant
city.
Sure,
So.
yeah. Giant Sure stands up. It's like, comrades, like we're trying to help you, like, strengthen ourselves through camaraderie, through like socialism and collective power. And the old guy is just
Yeah,
like
yeah.
says like, what do you know? Like, I don't care if I'm exploited as long as I get rich.
Yeah, as long as I got on Chan, as long as I can get the money, as long as I can do such that I get money, then it's okay. So
And then
yeah,
to which point Xiaoyan stands up and is just like, you know what, like you can wait for a boss to buy up your land. I don't care. But
where's that boss?
honestly, where's that boss? What are you going to do? Like, why don't you
Yeah,
stick with this and actually make some money instead of just dream about a big boss? And then eventually they kind of settle into this idea like, we'll accept the money and we'll come back next year for 4 meetings and we'll get another payout in July.
yep. And Shoyen has the idea of like, all right, guys, like let's do this. Like she offers them for the first year or two. How about you just have
Mm,
one section of land
that's right.
where you do not put any pesticides or chemical fertilizer on. And we'll guarantee that this will be purchased at double the whatever
Okay.
rate you've been getting same time of year.
Good thinking.
We after the meeting today actually, Laura's like, what a stupid idea. If you do that, the chemical fertilizer and pesticide will just flow from the plot. If there's inorganic production on every side of one plot,
Hmm.
it's just going to leach in and it's still going to be inorganic. So
He's
that's not
he's
going to
not
work.
he's not wrong, but
He's not wrong. He's not
but
wrong. So,
it
but
it,
it was
it at least gets the idea of organic farming and the principles of it, the methods of
exactly, and
it.
it's
Yeah.
like, check it out. And like, I thought that this was already proof of concept. You guys can come over here. Tea is still growing. I haven't put
Right.
any
That's
fertilizer on
that's
it now
that's
for
true.
2+ years. It's still growing. I still got a fantastic spring yield. We went out there and picked it and took all these pictures to check out, hey, it still works. Um,
Hmm.
But the argument was made, well, it works out there for you because we never did inorganic production over here, really. Again, this family has been, I guess, out of commission for a while, and these fields had gone fallow. So their idea is like, well, the soil was already rewilded out there. Whereas our fields have been
Mm.
getting pesticide consistently for decades.
So what?
Pesticide
Yeah.
and
And
fertilizer, right? So like we've
do you
already
think?
screwed the fertility of the soil. Is there?
Yeah. And so do you think there will be a buffer year, like a year where
Ooh,
as you're doing the transition, it won't grow as well?
absolute. Sorry, like a cricket just tried to jump into my mouth, but
Nice.
forgive the woo. But
Any bats there?
I mean, say again, are there cats there?
Bats.
Currently, no bats. We're currently bat free for 4 days at least.
Cheyenne sent a picture of a bunch of hanging meat. Is that in our cabin?
That would be in the team leader's cabin. We'll get to
Okay, okay,
his discussion whether that's
cool.
which he gave a lot more insight as well.
Get,
Anyway,
getting back into the adjustment period for
yeah, he's
organic.
like, forget the to your point. He's like, yeah, the first year after we switched, our yield halved,
That's
even
a
with
scary number.
so law says if you use 6 times or 8 times the fertilizer, just like that woman said, you can get a sufficient yield. He says nah, even with like 6 or 8 times, like what the average farmer actually got, regardless of whatever the special ratio is, what actually happened is for most people it halved. Maybe they were not applying enough. Maybe they didn't know how to apply organic fertilizer correctly. Whatever. I doubt it. That's what they were doing here historically for decades before they had inorganic fertilizer.
Right.
Regardless of whatever reason it is it the company government fertilizer that's the problem? Is it the application? Is it the amount? Whatever happened, it halved. Their yield halved, and the price did not budge.
Ugh.
Is the real crux of the matter. And they did that for forget 1 year, 5, 6 years, even some plots, and they did not ever see the results they saw using chemical fertilizer ever.
So yeah, so what's the point?
What's
Why
the
go
point?
organic?
Yeah. Why organic? Well, it's like, um, I was talking to some of my professor friends here in China, like who are do organic ag as their like research field, and they're like, oh, well, it's just one of those places. Some places it just works, and the farmers are all about it. It's places it just doesn't work, and it's hopeless. Don't bother. It's
Hmm.
the message I've been given. And but like, I would like to know why. I'd like to know why it hasn't worked here, because there are, by the way, organic Huaji. We mentioned at the beginning of this discussion today. They are fully organic, and it was in Huaji. I saw them using clovers. I
Oh
saw
wow.
them using tarps instead of co-cropping with corn. I saw all the methods that we're doing here now. I first saw at Huaji, to be honest. So like, I know it works somewhere in Ensha. And
So
yeah, go on.
here's the sharp question: should we give up on the Ma Taiyuan village and just find somebody who's doing it right? Find some people who are into the idea of organics and just support them.
Yeah, that was definitely the vibe. Directly after the meeting, was like, forget this. This is awful. This is not going to work. John and Show was like, well, it was nice meeting you guys. Like, we'll be in touch.
I'm gonna go home and rethink my entire life
Yeah,
trajectory.
and he texted me the next day afterwards, yesterday, and was just like, "Oh, it was so heartbreaking to talk to the Lao Baixing," and
Ugh,
like, and then he used in
the
quotation
common
marks
people.
about the cooperative. Next year, I can do some like part-time volunteering stuff, but I'm not sure I'm ready to be a member and like have to deal with that on a daily basis. So,
Wow.
R.I.P.
So
John, so you're a good kid.
and so this comes at a very opportune time actually because we have a comrade coming tomorrow, right?
Yes,
What's
with
what's
Paul
his
from North.
Paul? And so he has an incredible amount of experience organic farming with cooperatives in was it Cuba?
Cuba. So like, talk about a hard place to make that work, and they did. So
And so hopefully this guy can be our little ray of light through the storm and be like, okay, like I've seen it all before. Let me show you how to do it. Like this. So we're hoping on this quite a bit now. But I'll let you continue with the story of like the day by day breakdown because the meeting that happened that we're talking about that was yesterday, right?
is it yesterday? Oh my God, it may have been yesterday. Yeah. No, it was the
Which
day before last. It was the day
the
before
day before
last.
last. Okay, yeah. So
Yesterday
that's
is when John showing back, and then was like all
which is
heartbroken.
yeah. It's prompted this episode because while it's still so fresh, it's just really incredible because we've also gotten into bed with the Loushuiyuan cooperative with the Ma Taiyuan, right? Ma Yan Tai.
My entire village.
Ma Yan Tai village and everything. And so we've leased the land for 5 years. We've set up our field. We have our cabin. That's where we're inviting the woofers out. And only 2 days ago, we discovered just this discontent, right?
Which when we've talked to we've been on here for years now, talking to the landlord, whoever he is, the guy who's stewarding this house, and Tim Popo, and the village team leader and Law, and they're all like awesome. They're all like, thumbs up, this is great. Like they never really, I guess, let us in on the situation. It wasn't until we, I guess, like stuck our fingers in the operation of this cooperative that we really realized the extent of the issues. Whereas before, I think it was just, easy and polite to tell us it's going great. Oh, Nikolai Warla, excellent, wonderful. Like, let's hang out.
And also like encouraging because they see potential in us, right?
Yeah, and
We're
they do.
bringing,
And
yeah.
again, we were heartbroken. And then earlier today, we went to go hang out with the team leader. He came over here. He came over first yesterday and was like,
To help burn
"Let's
your
hang
plastic.
out." And I was just like, I don't know." He's like, "All right, I'll come back tomorrow morning and we'll like make sure the house is all good and ready for the tourists." Because the landlord he helped us like remodel, right?
Yeah.
And then I was gone for a weekend and came back. He finished the remodel and then left everything. So like all the wood and sawdust and tools and broken glass and stuff. I was like, oh, okay, this is not ideal for a tourist. So we spent most of yesterday was just cleaning. And then
Okay.
this morning also was finishing up the cleaning. And he got his way. Yes, he did in fact burn the plastic and everything else. Because he's like, hey, the government don't bury it anymore. Burning it is the suggested way now. We burned
Oh,
it. He was he's a really smiley guy, really smiley,
yeah,
like maybe
that's
like
good.
4'11", 5 feet at most, little
Yeah.
guy. He's like, all right, that's great. Your house is clean. Come to my place. We need to talk. I was like, oh, okay. And we went back to his place. And he expressed to us, I guess there had been a post and after party. And a lot of the villagers still want to do cooperative stuff. They still want to try. They're not very excited about working with Loushuiyuan again, but they still want to try to, with us, work with the volunteers, work with organic tea, and do something. And what we
Okay.
came up with, used to Derek, I guess, like in the course of today, was like, we are going to buy one of the old school, well, not buy, we're going to commission, I guess, one of the old school uh, tubs where they would like, Ronian, where they would like, how would you, English,
The rolling machine?
kneading. Yeah. So like how they kneaded back in the day by foot.
Oh, by foot. Okay.
He's gonna get us commissioned one of these big tubs, and when we have the volunteers out here, in addition to trying to experiment with white tea,
Wait, so we can make foot tea now.
we can make foot tea because he knows how to
That
do it.
that can sell a lot in certain niches, I
People
think.
people love the foot tea. People love the foot aspect. But yeah, so like foot tea, guys. He knows how to make it still because he's like ancient, and he's like his brother knows it too.
So
So he's
this is,
saying,
you know what?
yeah,
This is the guy that you've mentioned for a long time. You've had this idea in your back pocket.
I
And you're like,
have. Well, initially I wanted to do it with Lua's dad.
okay,
Uh,
Lowell's dad was the initial foot tea guy
he was there. I was like,
with
I
the
can make
secret
foot
knowledge.
tea,
Yeah.
secret knowledge. And I was like, let's do that. He's like, I don't know how to make foot tea. That was earlier this year, like May. I was like, okay, you don't know how to make. That's okay. That's cool. You don't have to know how to make foot tea. And we tried to do it, and it was pretty okay. What was made, no feet involved, no feet
Oh, really?
involved.
Okay.
Still using the machine. What makes it different from Maojian is that for the last part of it, instead of going and being dried in the kiln, it gets taken outside and dried under the sun. So true
Shy
proper foot tea is made with oil and in a big old wok. You're basically frying it. You're basically frying
with
this tea.
oil.
Sometimes with water as well. So like
Okay.
I've seen videos of people with oil and with water, basically like cooking the tea. And after cooking the tea, pressing it with their feet and then taking it outside to dry in the sun, which is insane. And it is
Yeah,
like
that
nothing
sounds
else
like
I've ever seen.
Tang Dynasty, Song Dynasty, Ming
And
Dynasty
that's
kind of
just like,
stuff. Like
yeah. So
no one really knows how to make tea at that time. Like
and there's a variation of it which still exists in Hunan, and it's kind of making a comeback, where instead of at the end of it just sticking it outside, you stick it over the fire and you smoke it. So imagine like
wow.
cooking the tea, kneading it with your feet, and then smoking it. That sounds insane.
That,
So this is a
yeah, that
variation
sounds
of
like
that. Yeah.
Tibetan export tea. Like
Yeah, and I like everyone here says, oh yeah, that tea, you can't make a lot of it in the course of a day, so it's not
hmm,
economic to make,
wow.
but it's very shown. It's very very smelly. Hopefully not for feet reasons, but it's very smelly tea, very fragrant,
So
because
mm,
you're you are essentially doing the last stage of production in your kitchen when you buy this. You're sticking it
uh,
over the stove and you are baking it. You're rebaking it before you drink it directly. So you bake
oh,
it before you infuse. That's how this tea was traditionally consumed.
So we're going to try and make that.
Yes,
That's awesome.
in July and August. And we're not doing it through Loushuiyuan. And they know. I told them
Oh,
a couple
really?
hours ago, like we're gonna just do this with the team
A
leader,
few hours ago. Jeez.
and we're gonna do it with him. And we're talking to Loushuiyuan about how do we involve them and the government and tourism, desires they have. And the idea now is like, okay, um, maybe the cooperative will fail. Maybe it will not be a thing in a few
Really?
years. It will be,
Really?
oh, they'll just be a tea factory, and that's okay.
Wow.
The cooperative element can be with us together. So from this house, this is the last house in the village.
Mm.
It's house number one. House number one. If you look at the postage,
Our house?
house number one. We're number one. So house number one in team three up here in Mining Tai. And
Okay.
this is where the old road, the old footpath used to connect down to their factory,
I
which used
remember,
to
yeah.
be a fish farm. Derek has walked that path with me.
Yep.
We're going to restore that.
Okay.
And for the very limited 10, 20, 30, 40 mu tops of tea fields that exist along that path all the way down to them, hopefully in the future, a combination of us, them, and the village collective will step into Changbao to buy it out from
Open
whoever
it.
has it initially.
Yeah.
And then that can be run cooperatively. The idea being try to attract young people to come out here because the old folks, they're not excited about it. So like try to do some amount of cooperation with the team leader and a few other households who are into the idea still of organic production. But the tea doesn't it's not going to be the tea picked from their fields. It'll be the tea picked from our fields, what we rent going down along the path. That we can guarantee as organic. And we should try
That's
to
a good
get more
point.
young people out here from the local universities, schools, what have you, and they will join the cooperative, Loushuiyuan cooperative, and us somehow in an agreement yet to be determined
Right.
as co-owners. And they're going to be getting labor points for the work they do, and they're going to get payouts based on the work. So rather than being a cooperative based on land, we should be looking at a cooperative based on labor, and especially trying to get young talent, young people to come out here and contribute to it. So that
Fascinating.
That seems like it might be the more viable approach. We'll try both paths, right? We'll try to do make the land organic on our own with outside labor and help. And then with the existing old folks here, with their knowledge and wisdom, try to bring back this almost dead, ancient, mystical, whatever method of foot tea. Very marketable foot tea.
Yeah, so maybe think of a new name for foot tea, but
yeah.
But at the same time, foot tea's got me in it.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of kind of okay, Loushuiyuan might not be around. The villagers of my
Maying
Tai. You changed the name on me, so I got. Anyways, the villagers of Maying Tai might not be into this idea. What can we do? We can do it ourselves with our own house, number one house, our own organic garden, and then since that land has been laid fallow, that path leading down to the Loushuiyuan cooperative, if we open that up, rent that out, that can be preserved as organic. And then we kind of separate that off from the One River Tea cooperative that is, buying and selling a lot of tea from other provinces and do it specifically in that Hubei region, in the Hefeng region and everything, and have that as its own enterprise that's based around the actual production of tea, right? Because the rest of One River Tea, we're just kind of middlemen where we're buying and selling, right?
I want this space, I always kind of wanted a space for us here to experiment with like other varieties. Because again, Maojian, it's fine. People who, if you like Hefeng Maojian, I respect you. It's okay. It's great. But like, it's not that exciting. And I don't think there's anything, I don't know, experimental or creative about it. I would be much more interested in trying to look at the kind of the cutting edge of tea in China, which is white tea, which, I mean, if you look at pu'er, white tea, and yellow tea, all three of these teas only really became a thing in the last 20 years or less, or at least in the form we know them today. They've only come together in the last 20-ish years. So that's interesting. That's exciting. Let's do stuff like that here. Yeah.
I mean, we have the experience of buying and selling, exporting teas and stuff like that. And so we have that intuition as to what will sell, what won't. And how many times have we tried to sell Hubei green tea in Maojian? Like
Ooh,
So,
at least 3 times, and not great. Not great. I mean, it's
and like
fine.
the weirdest tea,
They're
like the mapo tea, like that took off, and it's like we just
yeah.
can't get the same luck for this Maojian that
Friends
we're
and
actually.
listeners, drinkers of mapo tea. I hate mapo tea. Listen to me right here. I don't like that tea. I think it's interesting as like a historical artifact. I hate that tea. But you
We
know
we
what?
we never
People like
expected
it.
it to catch on.
Yeah, like it's not bad. It's like, it's
But it's
fine.
for us, it's like the most like typical standard Hubei green tea there is. Like
Yeah,
there's
it's
for us,
very
there's
boring.
nothing special about it really.
Nothing
Like
special about it.
it's drinkable, it tastes
Yeah.
nice, but it just doesn't excite us. Anyways,
Yeah, there's never been a day where I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna crack open that mapo tea and like get a sip of that. Never once has that thought entered my mind.
which again, I mean, it comes from us living in the green tea world where
And we have so much variety. We have so much
everyone's
variety.
drinking this tea all the
Yeah.
time. So it's just
I
like,
mean, it tastes like you remember like the Liangchun
oh yeah,
kind of like that, where and which I guess was inspired by Dragonwell somehow, kind of. But
somehow. I mean, and I feel like the
it was flattened, right? It was
Luyan,
flattened.
yeah, I mean the Luyan Trun for me looks a little more like Anji Baicha, which is in the same region, just south of Yixing. So still Jiangsu or Zhejiang maybe. Anyways,
But not tasty, not tasty tea. Very boring, very generic, not lame. We hope, dear listeners, friends, comrades, consumers, that like our efforts here and your efforts, you support us through buying our tea and listening to this and reading the blog and all that nice stuff. Hopefully, we can make our mark here. I think we're at a point in Chinese history now where the Chinese government is sure that they want some form of collective cooperative economics to survive in this country. They know that they want organic agriculture to succeed in this country, but it's not quite there. Like the direction has been set, and this historical process is taking place, but it's a bumpy road. And hopefully, we can get the car back on the road and running smoothly here in Hefeng at least, and we can be part of that process, part of that history, and more importantly, bring you out here. Be a volunteer. Come stay here. Yeah, like get an inside look at the tea industry in this country, in the country of tea. So that's my pitch
yep.
to you, my
And
plug, if you will.
I mean to borrow a Chinese saying, there's it's Tian Shi Di Li Ren He. I love it, where it's just right time, right place, right people. And as Alex was just saying, where it's now is the time where China is kind of reconsidering this idea of collectivization, of cooperation, and trying to get these things to work. We've seen so many different areas doing tea travel, doing ecotourism, creating these things, trying to stimulate local economy through these tea tours, through these, really beautiful scenic spots. And so there's that potential to get, some serious good government funding for serious projects like this. And if we can find, the lucky just mix of all the right people, right time, right place, right ideas, I feel like there is a chance to really show the villagers of the Mayan Thai that this is viable. Like organic farming here on this mountain is viable. People want it. People care about it, and just stick with it. So,
We are now 5 hours away when I have to walk down the mountain to pick up this Norwegian volunteer.
okay. Thank you so much, Alex, for all of your information.
To talk to you as always, Derek, and yeah, we'll stay tuned. Part 2 in a year, hopefully.
All right. Take care. Thanks for sharing so much.
Yep. All right.
All right. So thank you guys so much for joining that episode. This is the final installment of that meeting that kind of talks about the cooperatives situation that we're experiencing up on the Mayan Thai in the village of Hefeng in Hubei. And this is a project we've been working on, like we said, since 2021. And it's something that doesn't get a lot of publicity because it's really just something Alex is really spearheading, and Alex sometimes doesn't do the best at social media and whatnot. And I'm Derek here, and so I do a lot of the social media, Instagram, the YouTubes, and stuff like that on a lot of the other platforms. And I'm here in Jiangsu, so This is a really cool insight into kind of the heart and soul behind One River Tea and what we really intend to do here. The good we intend to do here, not just saying, oh, we're doing good and we're helping farmers, because as you see here, that's incredibly more complicated than just saying a farmer on a mountain, we're buying their tea and so we're helping them out. No, we're literally giving them money and it's still not really palatable to them because the organic farming isn't working for them. The systems are failing them. And so we're really just trying to do our best to figure out what we can do in this economy, in this world of modern tea in China, beyond just saying we're doing good and whatnot. So thank you guys for joining and just listening to us talk all about this. And again, this is Derek from One River Tea. I'm going to get back into the regular episodes where we're going to talk about Dansong Oolong in the next 2 episodes because I've been tasting dozens and dozens. I just got another box of 14 different samples from one person, and I have 2 other boxes on the way from different producers. I already decided on my Wudong Mountain stuff, so in the next episode, I will talk about Dansong Oolong. The end of this month, this end of August, we will release, I think, 12 or 14 new Dansong Oolong, so get ready for it. I'm going to start the hype train. And yeah, next episode, we're going to go up to the Wudong Mountain, and we're going to look at production, and we're going to meet Wen Zitong. And Wen Zitong is one of my favorite tea producers I've met this year for a lot of reasons. So again, Derek from One River Tea, thank you for joining this extra long episode, and I'll catch you guys on the next episode of Tea Soup. So until then, brew happy.